I'm here to talk about my son, Diego. He passed by suicide on March 24th, 2024. He was an amazing kid, very creative. He was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, where I'm from too. We moved to Tucson, Arizona in 2005. He was 5 years old. My husband was already living there. We became a family of three. He was a very curious young man, and he loved to draw. He always showed an interest drawing and painting. When he started kindergarten here in the States, he didn't speak any English, and he started kindergarten, and by the time fall came around, he was fully bilingual. He learned English very quickly. He was very smart, and his teachers were very impressed with him that how quickly he picked up English. So that was something I was always very proud of. He made good friends. He was very easy to make friends. He had friends everywhere he went, in church, at school. He was very social, very, very social, and he loved sports. He started playing soccer, and then when he was in, I think, third or fourth grade, he wanted to play football. So I let him do it, and it was a great experience because we met great families. We became friends with the families, and Diego loved it. It taught him discipline, and it taught him, I think, it was a good influence in him. It was a very good environment for him. And he created, unforgettable memories during the time that he was doing football, all the way to high school. When he started high school, he played football too during high school, the 4 years. All of his coaches were always very pleased with the way he behaved on the field. And he also played other sports, like he did cross country. He started running cross country in middle school, and he was very good at it. He would go out early and do his runs, and he would ask me to go out and drive my car, and he would try to race me in the car to improve his speed. High school was, I think that was his best time. He was a very happy social kid, honor roll, football player. He, had his first relationships with girls, and he never presented any problems with drugs. I was aware that he was smoking. I think that he was smoking nicotine. My daughter told me that that she saw him smoking nicotine with his friend, and she didn't know what it was. She only saw him doing a vaping pen, like smoking a vaping pen, and I talked to him, and I told him that that was not acceptable, and I never saw him smoking again, or I never heard of him smoking. I never saw any of that at my house when he was, living with me at my house. Never saw any of that. He would drink, yes. In high school, I would start noticing he would come home with an alcohol smell. And for me, that was completely normal. Like, okay, you start experiencing with alcohol, you're in that high school age, all of your friends are doing it. I did it when I was a kid. For me, it didn't represent any concern.
Right.
And marijuana, I had no idea. I had no idea he was smoking until college. He started college, and the first year he lived at home. I told him it was better for him to stay with us, to try to save money and not pay for a dorm. We live in the same town where he went to school. So I work at the university where he attended, and I got the job since he was in kindergarten. Basically, a year after I moved to the States, I got the job there, thinking for the future for my kids that they could use the benefit of the reduced tuition. And that's what he did. So the freshman year of college, he stayed home. But then we realized, since it was architecture, the program was very demanding in terms of, a lot of projects and a lot of lab work, a lot of studio work that required to do projects. And he had to, meet deadlines. And it started becoming a need that he would be closer to campus. Our home was an hour away from campus, so he decided to move in. He wanted to be more social, or he wanted to be more involved with college activities and make friends. And he joined a fraternity. So that fraternity he joined was, very active with charity work. And he told me all about these good things about the fraternity, and I was very hesitant. I didn't think it was a good idea, because always fraternity life is, related to a lot of partying. So I didn't want him to get into that environment. But he thought it was a good idea, and I agreed, because I wanted him to be more involved and meet new people. He had a breakup. His girlfriend, the only girlfriend, serious girlfriend that he had in his whole life, was this girlfriend in high school. In his senior year, they right after they finished high school, they broke up, and he was heartbroken. And he told me, I'll never find a girl like her. And he was very sad about that breakup. So I wanted him to find another girl and, meet new people. So when he joined the fraternity, it seemed like he was doing very well. He seemed very happy. He was a kid that was always very insecure about himself, but nobody knew that side of him except for me. He would open up with me. I was the only person that he would open up to. He pretended very well always that if he was not happy, he would not express, if he was having a bad day or sad, he would always put up his best face. He was very reserved in that, and his friends tell me that he was always happy, smiling, and encouraging other people. So whatever sadness he would experience, he would never show it unless that's what his friends would tell me, and he would open up to me. So in that period when he joined the fraternity, his goal was to meet new people, and he seemed pretty happy, but also he started, partying a lot and drinking a lot. That never was a concern of mine because I thought he's still going to class and he's getting excellent grades, very involved with the college. He became an ambassador of the college. He volunteered, I didn't influence his decision on being an ambassador of the college, but he volunteered. He made friends that inspired him to be an ambassador. And, being an ambassador of your college, you go out to new or host groups of new families that want to, their kids want to become a student, and they tell them, what they do, show them around the building, and just help them understand the program. And that's what he did. He was very involved with the activities in the college. So I was never concerned about his performance at school. And he also was always working in the summer, he was always trying to be productive. And I remember that he told me he was gonna look for a job after his first grade in college, so he could get experience in the construction field. A friend of our family advised him to find a job in construction, so he could learn, what the trades do and all that in terms of building. And he did. He landed a paid internship that first year of college that summer, and he really liked it. Everything was looking great for him. Like he was on the right path to what he wanted to be in life. When I noticed things were not okay is the last 2 years of college. He would come home and, tell me that he was struggling with depression. Like he was having these, sad episodes where he could not even explain why he was so sad, and he felt lonely, even though he had so many friends. And by then he lived he had, during COVID, they had asked everybody in the fraternity to leave the house because they were going to go online for classes. So he came home. So that was 2020 during COVID, right? But then after they went back to classes in person, he and his friends from the fraternity decided to rent an apartment together. So there were 3 friends and him renting an apartment. and he had a lot of fun with these friends. He would go on trips with them and all that. They became really, really good friends. But in that time, like I said, 2 years prior graduation is when I started seeing episodes of him being sad and telling me that he had, these anxiety episodes that would happen right when finals were happening. So I thought it was when he was stressed, these episodes of anxiety would come on, and he would, call me. We always been very close, and he would call me for anything. Mom, I need groceries. Mom, I need this and that. I was like the go-to parent for everything, and we were very close. I work there too at the university. I work on campus, so he would come to my office and print something. I would print stuff for him in my office, and provide some snacks before he would head to class. We go to lunch together on campus, and like I said, during finals is when he would experience these anxiety episodes triggered by the stress. Yes. And I didn't know he was smoking weed or cannabis. I didn't know. He didn't live with us, and then when we would travel together as a family, we would make trips. I never saw him carrying anything or bringing a vaping pen or anything. I don't know if he was just very careful of not, showing it to us or hiding it, but I never saw anything. And we would travel together for long trips, like family trips, so he would never show it. So after he moved to Phoenix to work this full-time job, he would call me and tell me that people at work were talking about him, that they were calling him names, and that he was scared to lose his job, that he wasn't performing well at the job. He said that, I remember in December of 2023, I went to Phoenix and we had dinner. And he told me that somebody had called him names, that he caught somebody talking about him on his back. And I was like, this must be a very hostile environment if they do that at work. But I could not, figure out what was going on at work. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to have a performance review and I'm scared that they're going to let me go. And I'm like, why would they let you go? And he's like, yeah, because I'm not meeting the standards. And I'm like, okay, well, that was December. I said, you do your best. And, my advice was always do your best, be calm. It doesn't hurt to ask for questions. Whenever you have questions, ask, and always be truthful if you don't understand something. So I asked him, after we had that conversation, I asked him, hey, what happened at work? How was your review? And he's like, oh, no, Mom, everything was well. They're happy with me. They're going to move my desk to a different location where I can be more communicative. They said that I need to be more outgoing and more communicative and work as a group with the other designers and be more outspoken. And so they're gonna move my desk to a location where I can be working together with other designers better. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. That was December. he had a roommate, and that roommate also was a friend of his since high school that also went to architecture school with him. And he seemed to be a very good influence because he was very neat and my son wasn't. So I thought, well, maybe you can learn from him because, you can learn some, cleaning skills or learn to have your place clean or whatever. So they became friends, or they were already friends from school, but in Phoenix, everybody got jobs and they would go out during the weekends. So it was a very tight group of friends from architecture. But this particular friend of his was very important to him. And I didn't know how close they were until after he moved to Phoenix, and every day they were doing stuff after work together. Yeah. And so that weekend when he died, it's the time that I knew something was wrong. We basically didn't have any time to know what was going on or how bad his use of cannabis was until that day. I didn't even know what psychosis was until after he died. Like, we never had to deal with any of that behavior until that weekend. We didn't have time. He started struggling at work since Monday night. And I know this after he passed. Before, I didn't know all of this, but because I have his phone, and after he passed, I started going through his phone, and I put a timeline together based on the text messages that people were sending him. And there was a coworker that expressed concern that he was showing, a different behavior at work that day. So what it was paranoia. Paranoia presented itself that week at work. But how I knew something was wrong is because he came home Thursday night. So he died Sunday, and he came home Thursday night. I was at a park with my daughter. My daughter was going to have a quinceañera. We were getting ready to rehearsal the dance. And he called me and he told me, "What are you doing?" And "Where are you?" Because we share always locations on the phone. And I said, "I'm at the park with your sister. We're having a rehearsal for the dance." And he's like, "I'm driving home." And I'm like, "On a Thursday, you're coming home?" And he said, "Yes." And so this was late. It was like 7 p.m. when he told me he was coming home. And so I thought, something's not right, because during the week he's coming home, and his voice seemed like something was bothering him. So he came home, and my husband and I were in the kitchen, and he started telling us that he was gonna get fired, that he was making a lot of mistakes at work, and that he might go to jail. And we're like, my husband and I are looking at each other, asking us, what's going on? We notice he is very restless, and he's, shaking, and he's telling me, "I might go to jail because I've been making a lot of mistakes at work, and the company is losing a lot of money because of me." There was a meeting on Wednesday, so the day prior. The meeting is called lessons learned that we have, and that's when everybody started talking about me in the third person. And I know they were talking about me because it's me who's making all these mistakes. And they fired somebody, and I'm next. They're already interviewing my replacement. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, you just go find another job. And he's like, yeah, but I can go to jail. And I'm like, no, you can't. You cannot go to jail just because you're making mistakes. Yeah, they can fire you, but you cannot go to jail. And then he goes, no, but I might go to jail for sexual harassment. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What did you do? And he's like, well, I think the women at work could file a claim against me because I'm very shy and I don't look at them in the eye, and maybe they think I'm looking at them inappropriately. And I'm like, no, Diego, that doesn't make any sense. You're not gonna go to jail for that. I said, you need to rest. I noticed that he had lost weight and he hadn't slept because he had like dark circles. He had dropped at least 10 pounds. He looked like he had not eaten or slept for days. So we were very worried. I think I am ashamed to say that I didn't know anything about this mental illness. Like, I've never encountered any situations where someone is paranoid, and it didn't occur to me that he was having a psychotic episode. I was trying to find out what was going on, and my suspicion was that something indeed was happening at work. But it didn't occur to me that it was him having a psychotic break. If I had chance, I would have acted differently. I had no knowledge of what was going on, and I wish I did. I would have helped him, but nobody warned me of this behavior, or I never read about it. I didn't even know how frequent his use of marijuana was or what. That was Thursday, and he insisted to go back to Phoenix that night. And I told him, you should not go back. I don't see you being well. Please take the day off tomorrow. Stay the night here. I'll drive you back home to Phoenix the next day. And he's like, no, Mom, I need to be there. I'm going to have a meeting with one of the bosses. There were 3 bosses, the owners of the company, and he was supposed to have a lunch meeting with one of them on Friday. And he said, no, I have to go back. So he insisted to go back Friday, and he went back that night. And I was very restless. I couldn't sleep, and I was worried. And so what I did is I called the mom of the best friend, because this family is friends with the owner, with one of the owners. And I figured she would tell me if it was true that he was gonna get fired or what, or she could give me insight of what was going on in the office. So I called her and I asked her if she had noticed anything. Diego had been to their house on Wednesday for dinner. So he had told me that he went to dinner Wednesday and that they also were talking about him on the third person during the dinner, and that if he got fired, this family was going to be very disappointed in him because he thought he owed them something because, they were friends with the owners of the company. But when I called her, she said, no, Diego has nothing to worry about. The owners are very pleased with his work. They love him. The other person that got fired because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He wasn't a good worker. But Diego has nothing to worry about. I know that. And I'm going to see him tonight. There was going to be a party of his son. Her son was hosting a party at his condo. He had just moved into a condo. Diego helped him move, and he was going to have a housewarming party that Friday, and with people with the office. And this woman, his mom, the mom of that friend, was going to be there. And she told me, yeah, I'm going to give him a hug tonight, and I'm going to tell him he has nothing to worry about. And I told her, I think I'm going to ask him to go to counseling because he had these stress episodes before, and counseling has helped in the past when he had, during college, he had stressful episodes where I sent him to counseling, and it worked. It helped him. So I told her I was going to do the same. And she told me, no, I think that we over-counsel our kids. I don't think he has nothing to worry about. I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to give him a big hug Friday. So Friday came, and I wasn't home. It was in the evening. I was at church with my daughter. I was doing the stations at church with my daughter, and he called me, and he told me, I'm coming home. And I'm like, you're not going to your friend's party tonight? He's like, no, I'm coming home. And I'm like, that's so weird. What happened? I said, did something happen at work? And he's like, no, nothing happened. I'll be home soon. By that time, before church, one of the employers called me and told me that they were worried about him because he had made odd comments. But they didn't specify what odd comments, and I didn't ask. I was still thinking something's happening at work. I was going with that story that something's happening at work, and maybe it's a hostile environment. But one of the owners called me, and he told me that he was worried about Diego because he went to lunch with a coworker or one of his associates, and he noticed that he was making odd comments, but they were never clear, or they didn't specify of what comments. So he came home Friday, and he called me and told me, why are you not home? And I'm like, I'm at church. Church is 5 minutes from home. And I told him, come to church, meet me here. And he loved going to church. He loved going to church more than me. So I thought, this is good. He will find me here. And we were going to have dinner at church after the stations. It's a tradition during Lent that we have soup after the stations. And he's like, no, I don't want to go to church. Why are you there? And just go home. He said, go home. I'll meet you home. So I noticed that was odd because he loved going to church. So I went to the house and met him there, or waited for him there. When he got home, he parked outside and he didn't want to get off the car. I noticed his location and he was right outside the house. And I went outside and said, why don't you come in? And he said, are they there? And I'm like, who? Yes, they're there. And he said that they're there. And I'm like, nobody's here. It's just me and your dad. So he came home with all his, like dirty laundry. He was, wanting to do laundry. So he got in the house with his laundry and brought in. And I said, what happened, Diego? What happened at work? Did you get fired? He's like, no, I didn't get fired. I had a meeting with my boss and I told him that I wanted to quit. I told him that I'm ready to quit, that it's too much for me and I want to quit. And I said, why don't you just, instead of quitting, look for another job, take some time off and wait until you get another job to quit this job. That way it doesn't look bad in your resume that you are not employed. And my husband works night shifts, so he had to leave. He's a meteorologist, so he rotates shifts, and that week he happened to work the night shift. So he exchanged a few words with him and said, I gotta go to work. So my husband left and I stayed home with him. We were talking on the couch and he started saying that he wanted to look for a different job, like he wanted to change fields completely. And I said, okay, I understand. If this is not the job you want, then I understand. But I think that you should just find another job instead of quitting. Find another job first. And all of a sudden he said, there's microphones. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, he starts whispering and say, there's microphones here in the house. They're hearing us. And he grabs my phone and his phone and puts it away from where we were sitting. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not okay. What's going on? And I asked him, I said, what did you smoke? Did you smoke something? And he said, yes, my friend gave me a stronger flower. I was trying to quit. He offered me a stronger flower and it really hit me. It doesn't hit him as hard as it did me, he said. And I said, why did you do that? Don't do it again. Please don't do it again. And he would be talking normal. And then all of a sudden make comments that they would not make sense. For example, he would look up in his phone how many years a person goes to jail for sexual harassment. And he's like, look, Mom, look, this is what I would go to jail for. And I'm like, you have nothing to worry about that. Nobody's gonna send you to jail. You have done anything like that to be worried about that. What are you talking about? So I'm thinking to myself, whatever he smoked, it makes him act like this. So he said, Mom, can I sleep with you tonight? And I said, yes. Yes, of course. I wanted to keep an eye on him. And my husband wasn't home because he was working the night shift. So I figured, yeah, you can sleep with me. So he slept with me. And the whole night, he could not sleep. The whole night he was talking about wanting to look for another job. He was saying, what if I just move back to Tucson? And I told him, yes, that sounds like a great idea. I said, you're not going to move back home, but you can find a job here and get your own apartment. And I wish I would have told him, move home. I wish I would have said something like, this is your house. Like, take all the time off you need. But I didn't know what was going on, if I could go back.
But you couldn't have known.
I hadn't, I hadn't experienced anything like that before. So in my head, I'm just thinking, this is gonna pass. Like, whatever symptoms this drug is making him do, it's gonna pass. It didn't pass. So Saturday morning, he seemed normal. He woke up and he told me he was gonna make breakfast. We were in the kitchen making breakfast. And then he said, Mom, let's go work out. He loved running. He loved working out at the gym. And I did too. He was a good influence to me because he would, inspire me to be active and, exercise. So he told me, let's go to the gym. And I was like, this is great. He's out of it. It went out of his system. Like, he's good. But my husband came home in the morning and said, we need to get him in. He's like, I have Googled his symptoms, and this seems like a paranoia type of symptoms. We need to get him in. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. So he made phone calls. That was Saturday. He made phone calls to providers in his area in Phoenix to have an appointment counseling session. And we told Diego, yes, you have to go and see somebody. And he agreed. He's like, yeah, I can do it. He was so concerned about being behind with projects that he wanted to schedule something during lunchtime. So my husband got on the phone with this person that was taking new patients, and he told him, Diego, we know this. We found this person online. He's taking new patients, counseling worker, and he's willing to see you next week. And my husband called him, and he gave him the phone, or we, gave him the phone number, and Diego called him. And he had a conversation with the counselor Saturday. And the counselor told him, yes, I can see you Monday. And it's going to be, since Diego didn't want to take any time off work, he arranged for a telehealth appointment. And it was going to be Monday during his lunch time. They agreed for a telehealth appointment. So I felt so much better after that. We went to the gym and we worked out together for about an hour and a half. We were doing equipment together, like strength equipment together, alternating the machines and having nice conversation. Very, very normal conversations. And the thought of him leaving that job was never away. Like, he was always talking about what he wanted to do next. And one of the things that he mentioned is that he was going to look for a city planner job in Phoenix. And I told that sounds great. Do it. But Saturday was normal conversations the whole time. So at night, we watched a movie together. He wanted to watch his favorite cartoon movie, that was Ratatouille. He loved Ratatouille. And we sat on the couch watching that movie and having a normal conversation. And he wanted to go to church Sunday. It was Palm Sunday the next day. So he told me he wanted to go to church. And I said, yes, let's go to church. After breakfast, we go to church to 11 o'clock Mass. And he's like, no, let's go to the 9 a.m. because I gotta be in Phoenix. I left my computer at work and I have a lot of work to do. So I need to go to work and get my computer. So we did. My daughter had a party Saturday night. She was invited to a party with her friends, and he offered to take her, to give her a ride, because he didn't want me to, it was gonna rain, so he didn't want me to leave the house, and he offered to take my daughter and her friends to the party. And he drove them, and he's like, no, don't go, Mom, I'll drive them. I say, I'll go with you. And he's like, no, I'll drive them, you stay home. And I'm like, okay, then I'll go to bed because last night you kept me up talking and I need my sleep. And I always joke saying, I need my beauty sleep, right? And he's like, yeah, go get your beauty sleep. So I went to my room and I locked myself because I didn't want anybody to interrupt my sleep, right? And I locked myself. My husband went to work again at night. And he went and took my daughter, set up his alarm to pick my daughter and her friends up at 11 o'clock at night. So when they came back home, I heard them coming. I heard the door, I heard them coming. And I had told him, you go sleep in your room, Diego, because last night you kept me up. And in the morning when I woke up, my daughter was in her room with her friends, 2 other friends. And in the morning, he knocked on my door very early. It was before 7 a.m. And he was pacing in the hallway. And he's like, I'm gonna take a shower. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, we're gonna go to church at night because I gotta leave early. And I'm like, yeah. So I got up, I started making breakfast. And he got in the shower. My husband came home and he's like, how is he? And I'm like, he was very well last night. Like, he seems very good. And so we didn't think of anything. By that time, that was Friday night, my husband had written and I posted the crisis line number. And he told me, if things don't go well or you need immediate help, call this number. And it was the crisis line number, the 988 number. So that posted was on the kitchen counter Sunday, but I didn't need it, all day Saturday. Everything was normal Saturday. So he got in the shower. I was making breakfast, and he came out of the shower, got dressed, and he told me that he didn't want to go to the 9 a.m. mass. He's like, let's go to the 11 a.m. I don't need to go early. I don't need to go back early. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, I want to go get a haircut. I'll be back. And I'm like, okay, go get a haircut. Just be here on time for church. And he goes back to his room, comes back, and tells me, no, I'm not going to go get a haircut. I'm just going to go and talk to the Marines. And I'm like, why you want to go to talk to the Marines? Yeah, I want to go to talk to the Marines Recruit Center. And I'm like, it's Sunday. Are they open? And he just looked at me like, wondering what else to come up with, or he didn't know what to say.
Or he's just trying to come up with a reason to get out of the house?
Yes. And he was acting very abnormal again. He had the same look that he had Friday when he came home. That, like panic or blank look. And then he started taking off his Apple Watch, his phone, and his car keys he left them on the kitchen counter. And then he told me, I gotta go. He said, I love you. I gotta go. And I'm like, where are you going? He's like, I gotta go, Mom. I love you. I panic because for me that was a sign. If he's like telling me he has to go and he's leaving all his things on the kitchen counter, for me that's a sign of, suicide behavior. So I called 988. And then I told him to go out to the front porch because I didn't want my daughter or her friends to hear any conversations while he was talking to the 988 people. So I invited him outside in the front porch, and he came with me, and I gave him the phone. So when I gave him the phone, I ran inside and I told my husband, get up. Diego's saying that he needs to go, get up. So my husband's like trying to get up and get dressed. That's all I told him. When I went to the bedroom, I came back outside. I was on my robe still. And I came back outside, and Diego was on the phone with the 988 operator in the sidewalk. And he was shaking, but he wasn't talking. So he gives me the phone back. And the agent tells me, ma'am, your son doesn't want to talk to us. Do you want us to send someone? And I said, yes, please. And so I gave them my address. And they were standing in front of me. And I gave them my address. And they told me they're going to send someone. So I told Diego, let's go inside. They're going to send someone. You're going to talk to someone. And he never wanted to come back inside the house. So he started walking away from the house. It was cold. It was starting to rain. And I begged him to come into the house, but he didn't want to. And he's like, go back into the house, Mom. And I'm like, no, I'm not going back in the house without you. And I said, what happened? You were fine yesterday. Did somebody call you? Did you talk to someone? Please tell me what happened. And he said, Mom, I think that you're hiding something from me. I think that you're not telling me something. You're hiding something from me. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, there's a lot of people that love you, and we want the best for you, and you're going to be okay. I said, whatever's going through your mind, you're going to be fine. You're going to get out of this, Diego. Like, this is temporary. Like, you're going to be fine. Let's go back in the house. And he didn't want to go back inside. So he just kept walking away from the house on the sidewalk. Then my husband got into his car, and he told me, I was thinking if in case he runs, I can reach him or can get to him faster in the car. So he was driving his car, following us from a distance, but keeping an eye on us. And that's what my husband told me, that he thought if he runs, I'm going to go after him in the car, because he didn't have his phone with him or his wallet of his keys. So we didn't want him to run. And I was trying to convince him to go into the house the whole time. And I was looking desperately at the phone. And I was thinking the people from 988 are going to show up, and it's going to be ugly. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want the girls to see that. So I started texting my daughter to get out of the house with her friends, to go to the friend's house because they lived a couple blocks from me. And I texted her and I said, please get out of the house. Your brother's not well, get out of the house. So I'm glad she listened and she got out of the house. She left the house with her friends, and a good hour passed. It rained on us. A good hour passed, and he finally walked back inside the house with me. And my husband's like, okay, Diego, tell me what's going on. We got into the kitchen, and he didn't want to sit down. And my husband is like, sit down, let's talk, let's watch some basketball. There's basketball in the screen. And he was pacing and shaking. His legs were shaking. And he had like a blank look on his face, and he didn't want to talk. So I wanted to act normal. I was in panic, but I wanted to act normal because I didn't want him to panic. But I was desperate because a good hour passed and nobody showed up from 98 yet. He was standing in the kitchen island, and my husband was standing in front of the stove. And I dialed, I saw him with this look that I thought he was going to try to do something. So I panicked and I called 911. I called 911 because I said to me, this is not looking, I feel all this tension. He's standing in the kitchen, staring at the knives. He's staring at the knives. And I called 988. And my husband tells me, get the knives, get the knives. He yells, and he's holding him. And I get the knives from the top. It's like a block of knives on top of my kitchen counter. And I just got the knives, ran to the garage, threw them in the garage. By the time I come back to the kitchen, it was like a matter of seconds. I see my son wrestling with my husband in the kitchen floor. He had yanked the drawer where we have all the steak knives, and he was stabbing himself. And I could not believe what I was seeing. He was stabbing himself in the neck. And I grabbed the phone and I started to tell the 911 operator what was going on. I saw my son's hurting himself. And please get someone here now. He's hurt himself. And I tried to stop him, like my husband and I were wrestling with him. And I tried to take away the knife from him. And I did take one. But then all of the knives were spread on the floor because he had yanked the drawer. So he grabbed another one and started, I don't know how many times. It felt so long. Nobody would help us. And the doorbell rang, and my husband got up from the floor, and we were covered in blood. he got up to open the door thinking that that was the help we were looking for. And it was a 98 agent. And he didn't want to come in. When he saw my husband covered in blood, he didn't want to come in. And my husband's begging him to come into the house. And the guy didn't want to come in, help us. And finally, my son, I don't know how he got up. He got up and walked to the backyard. I chased him and I was trying to stop him. He had another knife, walking with another knife to the backyard, and I still try to take away the knife from him, and he said, I love you, like twice before he went. And then the police showed up and they took me away from him, from that area. And I was hurt too. My hand was cut. I didn't know, because of all the adrenaline, I didn't know that my hand was cut. So they took me to the ambulance and started asking me questions, but I was just worried about him being okay. And I told them, please take him to the hospital now. Take him to the hospital. And they would tell me, ma'am, we're doing whatever we can. We're doing whatever we can. And then one of the agents, or one of the paramedics, came back and told me, we got a pulse. So I'm thinking he's safe. But then he came back and told me he was gone. He said, we lost him. And I couldn't believe it. It just happened so fast and nobody helped us. And 988 should not be a crisis line, or should not be advertised as a crisis line, because there was a crisis and they didn't come, or they didn't tell us what to look for. They didn't tell us to call 911 instead, or anything. How were we supposed to know what to look for? It seems so unreal. I could not comprehend why that happened. I didn't even know what the type of illness could have been, or what type of drug. So the toxicology report took forever. It takes weeks and weeks. And during that waiting period, I'm searching online, trying to find other stories of suicide, but none of the stories relate to us. Finally, I came across with some of the stories that were similar, and then my husband he began to read about psychosis, and we think, yeah, this is what happened to him. He went into psychosis. Why? We don't know. Maybe it was stress, but how could someone do that to themselves? And so finally the toxicology report came back and it only showed THC. And I started reading about cannabis induced psychosis. And that's how I know that he had cannabis induced psychosis. I don't know if he was having a withdrawal symptom and that psychosis came because of that withdrawal. Because he told me he was trying to quit and his friend had offered him a different flower that weekend or that prior weekend. There's a lot of things that I don't know. I tried to reach out to his friend. He never answered my calls. He turned out to be not such a good friend because he never agreed to talk to me. He was the only person that was with my son the last week and that spent a lot of time with him, including his family, that they became very distant. They didn't want to talk to me. He came to the funeral, but after the funeral, I wanted to have a conversation with him. I didn't think that funeral was a good place to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I tried to, talk to him, and he would not answer my calls. He didn't agree to talk to me. I approached him through other friends from architecture too, and they would tell me, no, he said he's not ready to talk to you. And 7 months passed where I finally went to the company. The company had an open house event that I thought this is a good opportunity for me to express my feelings, because my feelings were extremely hurt by the company, by the way they acted. So they never, when Diego passed, they never acknowledged his passing. They didn't even send me a condolences card. And I'm thinking, this is his employer. This is his work family. Why are not,
Why not something?
Nothing. They didn't advertise, or they didn't post on their social media or on their webpage, or, nothing, or offer me a condolences card or anything. So I wanted some kind of recognition from, because my son was their family, work family. Even the College of Architecture had posted about him in a tribute, and they've done so much for us. We worked together with one of his very good friends from school, and we set up a memorial scholarship with the college that we intend to have open every year in his memory. And the college has been extremely supportive, something that they didn't show, that the employer never showed. So I decided to go and find his friend there, and he was there, and I asked him if he would tell me what Diego and him were doing the last week and what was the interactions that week, and if he noticed anything. He became very aggressive. I still don't understand his behavior of the friend. There wasn't any compassion in, the way he talked to me. I was expecting him saying, I'm sorry, give me a hug, something. None, no compassion. He started yelling at me there, and he's like, how can you just show up here? And I'm like, because you have been avoiding me, and I really wanted to talk to you, and this is an open event. I've been wanting to talk to you. Diego really loved you, and clearly you didn't care about him. And he started yelling at me, raising his voice, and said, how dare you? How dare you? After I told him that he didn't care about him. And I said, yeah, you're not showing me any compassion. And he's like, can I tell you the truth? Or he said, can I be honest with you? And I said, yes, please do. And he said, your son was having a schizophrenic attack. And I asked him, when was this? He said, that was Tuesday. And I told my parents, and my parents called you. And I said, no, your parents didn't call me. They never called me. And he was surprised. That look on his face was a total surprise. And I could tell that he was surprised to know that his parents didn't share that information with me. So then I understood that behavior. And I do not understand the reason, but I understood how cruel of behavior they're showing. And the parents were in the same event. So I approached the mom and I said, can I talk to you? And the mom didn't want to talk to me. She looked at me with disgust and walked away from me. And I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, my son died. And their son was the best friend, supposedly. Why are they acting like this? I still don't understand. Wow. I still don't understand. And the only reason I can come up with is that they probably did drugs together. My son experienced a psychotic break and he panicked and he didn't want to share it. That was my only suspicion, but I don't have an explanation on that kind of behavior or of lack of compassion. Our family is struggling, but we're trying to honor his memory by doing this, sharing our story. And I've been hosting events to benefit mental illness organizations. Last year, I hosted a 5K run in his honor, and we donated all the funds to NAMI in our chapter, Southern Arizona. And like I said, I and a friend of his opened a scholarship, memorial scholarship on his name, and we're trying to keep it going every year. Going to therapy. My daughter, obviously, she's very affected by it. So we're just trying to learn to live with this pain. We miss him. And we wish we could have had more time with him. 24 years was not enough of him. And he deserved better.